People say that Islam, the religion of Islam, is like this like angry religion, and all they want to do is go to war and like kill everybody. But like, I don't really think that's the case, because I met a lot of Muslims. Some of them are pretty wild. Like, you meet some people, like, no offense, you meet some people from Arabia, they're a little bit aggressive. They're a little bit aggressive. They like to sell, they like to sell stuff really aggressively. Like, they're like hustlers. I met some guys, like, I was in high school with a bunch of guys from like Afghanistan. Like, those guys, you don't want to mess around with them. But I didn't really feel like the religion was kind of great. So the Quran says this. Fight in the cause of God only, against those who wage war against you. So who wage war against you, but do not exceed the limits. God does not like the transgressors. So telling you, if you're going to fight in the way of God, in the way of the good. The problem is that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So like, you'll have like the Crusades saying like, we're fighting for God. And then you'll have the Muslims, the jihadis, saying, we're going to fight for God. So like, how do you know? How do you know who's right? Well, probably if you're killing innocent people, it's not a good idea. Like, any religion that's telling you to kill innocent people is not a good idea. Any religion that's telling you to murder civilians, am I allowed to say murder on this app? Whatever. Any religion that's telling you to hurt civilians, not a good idea. Not a good idea. You know, there's a certain country, and that certain country says, I've heard people from that country say, they're going to grow up to be the T word. They're going to grow up to be like that. So why don't you just kill them now? So they're basically saying that there's such thing called collective punishment. Whereas kill everybody, shoot, I said it again, unalive everybody, so they don't grow up to be evil. The challenges with that is the more people you hurt, the more fanatical people you end up creating. So you should fight your enemy, but like, maybe you don't want to be the transgressor. You don't want to be the aggressive one. Maybe it's better to fight in defense if you're actually fighting for defense, not using euphemisms like the IDF going into different countries. Huge euphemism. So hopefully this video doesn't get me so in trouble. Fight in the cause of God against those who wage war against you, but do not exceed the limits. God does not like the transgressors. Kill them wherever you come upon them, and drive them out of the places from which they have driven you out. So don't drive them out of places. Don't go into their villages and wage war on them. It's not saying to do that. It's not saying to do that. It's saying basically take back what was stolen from you. I think that, and the Muslims, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is about the Meccans, the Meccan Arab pagans, who were driving people out of their homes. And then the Muslims went to Medina, and they were taking their stuff. They were selling all their merchandise. They were basically robbing them, stealing their property. Because the Muslims went from Mecca, they were persecuted in Mecca, where the Kaaba is. The Kaaba is this box where apparently the first man, Adam, built it, and then Abraham rebuilt it. And then it got filled with statues. Like, that's the story. It got filled with statues. And then Muhammad came and said, what's with all the statues? We don't need all these statues. There's only one God. You should pray to one God. Why do we need all the statues? Because the idea is, why would you pray to something that you created? You're superimposing your values onto a statue, and then you're praising those values. Are you not just praising yourself then? Anyway, so the Meccans were pissed about this. And the reason why the Meccans were pissed was because they were the trade route. So like, all the gods were there, hosted in this area, and like, people would go to Mecca to like celebrate, and be a lot of trade. And so the Meccans were making bank. And Islam started. This guy Muhammad came and was like, nope, we're not doing this. So they were threatened financially, essentially. So they drove Muhammad out. They drove Muhammad and his followers, the Muslims, they drove them all out, and they ran away to Medina. I think the city was called Yathrib before, but I could be wrong. Because Medina means city of the Prophet, I'm pretty sure. And they rode to Medina, and then the Meccans went further, stealing the property of Muhammad and his followers, the Muslims. I'm pretty sure what this one's about. So, fight in the cause of God against those who wage war against you, but do not exceed the limits. God does not like the transgressors. Kill them wherever you come upon them, and drive them out of the places from which they have driven you out. This is a pretty aggressive, but the world is aggressive. The world isn't like rainbows and butterflies all the time. Sometimes you have to defend yourself. Just the thing is that you don't want it. What? Exceed the limits. For persecution is far worse than killing. Well, I guess then you have to make a definition of persecution. What does it mean to persecute somebody? Because a lot of people feel like they're victims now, and I don't know if they're being persecuted. You could definitely say, though, that a lot of countries that were invaded, they were being persecuted. They're being persecuted. What's that thing that happened in Iraq? Where, what's it called? Where they were like torturing Iraqis. Man, I met, you know, when I lived in South America for a while, and I met so many US military veterans that served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And they really opened my eyes to what happened in there, because they were all pissed. I was living in Colombia, and they were all they basically just ran away from the United States. I went to go live training jiu-jitsu with them, and some U.S. Marines, Air Force, some special forces. We just trained together, and sometimes, you know, you're training with somebody, you become friends with them, and they would tell me their stories. And a lot of them had post-traumatic stress disorder because they realized the war that they were doing wasn't a good idea. Same thing happened when I met an Israeli soldier. He was tripping. He went to the jungles, went to go do something called ayahuasca, which is like a psychedelic, and he looked like he was in shatters from the things that he's done and witnessed being done in Palestine. So you hear from the people. You don't want to listen to the media apparatus who control the media, they control the war machine. So they'll tell you, yeah, it's a good idea to go to war, and then they'll, you know, unalive all these civilians. And they'll make you blame the civilians. They're just people, man. We're all just human beings. You know, you got a wife, you love your wife, you got some kids, you love your kids. You don't really want to go to war. But there's some people who do. There's some people who are corrupted by evil itself, which I would call the devil. Evil that's conscious and all around you. Like a vibration that you can dip into. Even when you're doing good. Kill them wherever you come upon them, and drive them out of the places where they have driven you out. For persecution